Happy Selection Sunday, college basketball fans, and welcome to the Upstate Orange Podcast, special NCAA Tournament edition. I'm Jim Sinicropi in the FingerLakes1.com studios. It's Sunday, March 16th, 2014, and we're just a couple hours removed from the NCAA brackets being released. We got Syracuse's draw. They're in the South. I'm pretty upset that we're not going to play in Madison Square Garden. I don't like the fact that we got to play Ohio State potentially in the second round, who we just played 2 years ago in the Elite Eight. I got a lot to say tonight, but I'm going to have trouble getting it in because there's a packed studio tonight. We got, of course, Brad Conner on the phone via Cincinnati. We got Verkey back in studio. We got the Mouth of the South, Dave Barnick. We've got Zac Young, head coach of the Lions varsity basketball team, Jim Boeheim's alma mater. And we got Kevin Korzeniewski, who I think leading three-point shooter in Brockport history, something like that.
That's correct.
That's true. Well, they're all in studio. We got a lot to react to, and I'm about ready to get right to it. But first, Verk, what do you think about Syracuse's draw, 3 seed?
I thought that's what they're going to be. I thought the committee did a great job. I didn't see any big issues of teams who NC State was a little surprising, and glad to see them get in now that Syracuse is in the ACC. Some of the seeding, I think, you could argue some of that, but obviously a really tough year with a lot of teams with a lot of losses. I think you had Florida, as everybody knew where they're going to be. But after that, in Wichita State, but after that, you could exchange, you have Louisville as a 4. I don't see a big difference between them and Villanova and them and UVA necessarily, and overall, I think Syracuse got a tough draw. They're in with the number one team overall seed in Florida. So if they're going to get to a Final Four, they're going to have to beat Florida and possibly. But, Kansas is the 2 with them, so some good matchups down the road.
How about you, Brad? What was your initial thought when Syracuse came out early on in the show? I mean, they said right off the bat we knew where Syracuse was playing and who they were playing against.
Yeah, I mean, the hope from day one was that this team would be in the East region and had the potential to play in Madison Square Garden. So when they started out with the South region and saw Syracuse, that was my first thought, was a disappointment that they wouldn't be able to play in that East region and get the Garden. But I'm not sure they necessarily deserved it. And if you look at the way the S-curve shapes out, if we can believe that that's the way the committee does it, if Florida is your overall number 1 seed, that would mean that the number 2 seed in the South region would be the worst 2, and Syracuse would theoretically be the best 3. So realistically, Syracuse is the 9th best team in this field. Yeah, I think you got to be happy with that based on what they've done in the last 4 to 5 weeks, really. So it's fair, and you mentioned playing Ohio State, and that might be a little disappointing having just played them a couple years ago, but I don't think that's a great team, and I like that matchup potentially in the second round. And that Kansas team, I'm not sure what we're going to get. And that's, there's a lot of questions if Embiid's going to play, and so, looking that much forward, that could be a potential opportunity for Syracuse, but I'm not sure we want to get too far ahead of ourselves quite yet. But I like the draw. I don't think I have too much to complain about. I think if you're an American Conference fan, I think you're a little bit disappointed with the seedings, and I don't think they gave American teams much of the benefit of the doubt. But beyond that, I think it's generally pretty fair. I don't think there's much to really get too upset about.
Well, we got a lot to talk about tonight and a full house to do it. The Upstate Orange Podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank, with locations in Auburn, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. And Seneca Meadows, responsible waste management for the next generation. Learn more online at senecameadows.com. And by Midday, Miris and Ricky, your hometown personal injury attorneys. If you've been injured and deserve compensation, call the Finger Lakes Personal Injury Hotline at 315-568-0911, 315-568-0911. All right, fellas, let's bring everybody else into the show. First, from south of the studio, they call him the mouth of the South. I like to call him Dandy Dave. It's Dave Barnick. Welcome back.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here. There's a heat wave in Seneca Falls. It's the first time I've been to one of these shows the entire winter where it's been above 0 degrees. So.
And you wore your Boston Celtics gear for St. Patrick's Day?
Correct, St. Patty's Day. I got my orange underwear on, though, Jim. So.
And on the couch, back to the show, we've got Zac Young, as I mentioned, head coach of the Lions varsity basketball team. Zac, welcome back.
Hey, Jim.
And Kevin Korzeniewski, member of the Finger Lakes FL1 Sports team and a record holder at Brockport for most threes ever, which, I don't think we've ever mentioned on the show or many times we've had you. So
I appreciate the shout-out tonight.
We are honored.
Made it worth coming down.
We are honored.
That was the longest we've ever had him in studio where he didn't say a word.
I was getting a little nervous over here.
Well, guys, first let's talk about Syracuse's loss to NC State. I mean, I wasn't shocked that we lost to NC State. I was just really disappointed because I knew that it was going to end our opportunity at a number 1 seed, obviously, and that put not playing at Madison Square Garden or Buffalo in jeopardy. But I was more disappointed that C.J. Fair couldn't make a shot. I mean, hopefully he got it all out of his system that game. Dave, what do you think?
I think when Fair was, with Cooney being so bad, key to having stone hands. Grant played up, Ennis played fine, but Fair was, he had an off game. What can you say?
What do you guys think over there on the couch? You guys both watch that NC State game?
I did, yeah. I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a common theme. I think in college basketball, you got to have 3 guys play good to win a game. And right now, a lot of Syracuse's games down the stretch, they haven't had 3 guys play well in a lot of their losses. And like Dave said, they had 2 guys play good, but C.J. Fair didn't.
What about Cooney, Zach? Is he going to make any shots the rest of the year?
He better, or it's going to be an early exit. I was a little surprised at the end when it was close that Fair was struggling. I thought Grant was scoring at will.
I felt the same way.
It's tie game, and Boeheim, as been mentioned before, stubborn sometimes. Goes to CJ with an isolation play. He got a charge, and they bank in a 3. There's some bad breaks, no doubt, but go with a hot hand.
They couldn't stop Grant. He either got fouled or he scored every single time, and that was frustrating to watch. It was also frustrating to see Syracuse not come out with more pressure defense early, which is something I've been saying through the slump. But what's your take on that?
I think it's, if you take anything from that, that's encouraging to me is Grant looks like he's back. You know what I mean? Which is obviously
healthy.
Huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He looked great. And I agree with Coach Boeheim. I think they're fine going to the tournament. They got Grant playing back up at high level. CJ Fair can't play that bad anymore. And the wild card to me in this whole team is Cooney. He's just been terrible, and I don't know. I've been wanting to bring him off the bench, start Benajay, and maybe bring Cooney. Over the years we've kind of had that scorer coming off the bench.
I want to see Patterson.
Somebody. I mean, anybody's got to be. I mean, I don't know. That's
very frustrating when at the end of the game we on that last possession. First of all, classic example of us losing a game that we could have easily won if a million things didn't go wrong. If C.J. Fair shoots 25% from the field, we win the game. But the last possession, we have the ball, 6 shots we get off. The first one, Cooney, who's you supposedly want shooting it, hits the top of the backboard.
Well, he had a wide open shot off the first miss, and he passed it up, and Ennis had a much more difficult shot.
Yeah.
I thought that was their big, right there, that was maybe a red flag for Boeheim to call timeout.
Right.
Cooney gets it, he's your best shooter, and he gets rid of it as quickly as he can. It was like a hot potato. You can't have that. He shouldn't even be on the court if that's how he's going to be. And then the next 2 shots he takes were they led up to that play led up to that, and I thought they should have got a timeout and went for 2.
Well,
Exactly.
Grant had the dunk. Go ahead, Zach.
I mean, that's what I thought. When he passed it up, Ennis took a very contested 3. I thought maybe then you're a little panicked, but then CJ did get a good look in the corner. I mean, you can't ask for a better shot.
Yep.
I think.
And then when we got the rebound, I thought Ennis maybe could have put it right back up quick.
Yeah.
True.
Layup.
True.
I think they. I myself, I know I lost track of time. I thought there was the way they were playing. There's 5 seconds to go, and there's really they could have had after the miss they could have had 12, 13 seconds to go still.
But then you
after
guys
the missed
think
dunk.
in the first half they had a lot of good shots. They just didn't go in. I mean, the dagger was the 3-point bank shot.
Yeah,
with the shot clock running down. But I really thought they would have won it in spite of their shooting woes in the first half.
NC State tried to give the game away a couple times too. I mean,
same as they did in the Dome.
Yeah, the jump ball,
travel at
call
backcourt.
timeout. I mean, they tried to give the game away.
How about when the guy
goes
in?
all the way to the basket? You know, I'm sure their coach probably told him if you got a layup, take it. And he tried to go 1-on-5
against Christmas. He's 5'10". He's trying to challenge Christmas at the end. That was awful, and that's a big concern. I think if you're a Syracuse fan, is they just lost to a team that barely made it in. NC State, I didn't think played very well and beat Syracuse. Syracuse could have won the game, but if you look at their bracket, and I know we'll talk about it later, but there's a lot of concern there. There's tons of concern.
Brad, what would you think? Bam should have took a timeout that final possession, because I think that we got good shots. So I'm going to say not put that one on Boeheim. You know, when we got 6 shots, Fairs was the one I thought was going down for sure, but is the way the game went for CJ, it didn't off the back iron. What would you have done? Timeout?
Boeheim said multiple times, "Hey, we got 6 chances at it," and he likes his odds that he's got 6 looks at a tying 3. But I mean, you could see from the get-go there was just chaos, an absolute chaos, and not a single person was out there to stabilize and recognize that you had 20 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever it was. You got to rely on a coach to do that. I mean, CJ's look was the only really good look they had. Ennis's was contested. Cooney's was ridiculous. CJ, he had a good look. You'd like to think he can knock that down, but you got to rely on a coach to know time and position, and he didn't. It seemed like Boeheim just wanted to just let it play out and hope for the best. I didn't think he made a good decision on that at all. I think he just seemed like I don't know. That's the most frustrating thing about it. You're relying on 19, 20-year-old kids. They're in the moment. They do get sometimes out of control. You got to be the adult and call timeout and get something set up. If you can't set up a play to get somebody an open look from 3, then I'm not sure what you're doing as head coach. That's on him.
I will give it to CJ. He shot a great shot from that corner. It was dead straight off the back iron. It was a millimeter from just going straight down. But then at the end, I think he lost track of time because he could have saved that ball in the corner, and he kind of gave up on it. And it was just very, very frustrating way to play in your first ACC tournament. And, it eliminated the possibility of that rematch with Duke that everybody was so excited about. But in the end, congratulations, Virginia. I think that haven't been high on Virginia this year, but I've watched them play 4 times, including when they beat Syracuse, since they beat Syracuse, and they're as good a team as anybody in the country. And I believe that. Just good team basketball, pack line defense. So
encouraging for this league, because this league's had obviously the reputation that it's Carolina and Duke and then everyone else. In the last 2 years, last year it was Miami won the regular season and the tournament. This year Virginia won the regular season and the tournament. And while we'd like for it to have been Syracuse, it's good when the non-traditional powers, I guess you could say, rise up and do well, and you hope they can sustain it and make this the league that we all kind of hope it will be.
2 years ago, Brad, if Florida State won the tournament. So been 3 years in a row since Duke or North Carolina. I saw that stat during the game today. So it's been 3 years.
And that's definitely good for the ACC, which is battling the 2 team at the top kind of perception for the past 15, 20 years. But next year Louisville comes in, and that's when I think the real ACC is going to get going. But let's get back to the NCAA tournament here. We're in Buffalo, which is good, but I was really looking ahead to Madison Square Garden, and to me, I just am so depressed that we aren't going to get to play in the regionals in MSG. And then you look at the Buffalo draw, and a potential second round matchup against Ohio State. That's just as close to Ohio State as it is for us, pretty much. So I don't think we gain any home court advantage there. Dave, are you scared of the Buckeyes and Aaron Kraft in the second round?
I think Boeheim would relish the opportunity to go against another poor shooting team. The first team to 50 probably wins that game. And I remember the disdain from losing them a couple years ago when they had the Syracuse injury played a part in a very close game. I think that was the Elite Eight game, wasn't it?
Yeah, this year Mello was out for the tournament.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So I'm happy that, you would have liked the whole ball of wax as far as where they played, both sites. But I was happy they didn't lose going to Buffalo in the first place, because they're, you know, with Louisville being in the number 4 seed, who knows? Syracuse could have wound up somewhere else besides. You never know.
Well, you look at some of these other 3 seeds. You got Creighton was a 3 seed, Duke was a 3 seed, Iowa State was a 3 seed. Then you look at even the only 2 seed with less losses than us is Villanova. And I don't know, you take the whole body of work or do you look at the last 10? I just felt like we were still a 2 seed, but, you know, of course they beat NC State in the ACC tournament. They probably are. Anybody know anything about Western Michigan?
Yeah, I didn't know a lot. I looked up. The scary thing about Western Michigan is they got a 6'11" center that's their second leading scorer, and he gets about 16 a game. And for the Syracuse fans out there, they play UB. You know, they're in UB's conference. UB was a good team this year with Javon McCray, who went to Newark, and he dominated. He got Player of the Year in that league. But you know, Western Michigan wasn't supposed to go to the tournament. They won their conference, and they got a point guard that is very good, but he only shoots about 32% from the three-point line. So he averages 19 a game. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of that Vermont where they got one good guard, he's 6'4", he can shoot over the zone, and then they got a nice center inside. That's their second-best player. So, you know, Zach said they're favored by 13, though, Syracuse.
Yeah, 13-point spread right now.
Which hasn't been much for Syracuse lately, right?
No,
you know?
no. I watched them a little bit. The MAC semis were on.
I'll take the points.
Time Warner. And yeah, I would too right now, no doubt.
They turn the ball over a lot, which should be a plus. Now, maybe Boeheim will come out and pressure and trap a little bit and force some turnovers, or are we just going to sit back in the second and hopefully eke out a victory in the end of the first round so we can move on?
That's what he's going to do.
I think if we get through that first round, good things could happen, though, and, you know, start another winning streak. That's all.
I was kind of upset when I first saw that Ohio State draw.
I think, you know, Dayton.
Yeah, Dayton could win.
You know,
yeah, that's true.
Dayton's going to bring a crowd up there too. You know,
Dayton really wants to get a piece of. They never played in the regular season.
Ohio
They're very
State
close.
will never play them.
They are very close. I think that's not a lock.
Now, don't you think that they kind of game it up a little bit, the NCAA? In another bracket, you got Villanova playing the winner of UConn St. Joe's, and you got a potential Creighton versus Nebraska. I guess it's smart for ratings and everything, but is it affecting the way teams are being seeded? Brad, you still there?
Yeah, I don't think that they. I don't. We like to point to conspiracy theories. I don't think the committee does a whole lot of that. People are going to watch these games anyway. I'm not sure there's much in the way of trying to create these matchups. They always say that, and I tend to believe it because they've got so much to worry about in that room that I think that's sort of the last thing that they've got to be worried about is, hey, let's create this matchup for television and for the rivalry element of it.
Seems like they match like mentors. You know,
Yeah,
like Michigan State's gonna
Manhattan, Louisville.
Yeah. I disagree with Brad. They always say that, Brad, that they don't pay attention to that stuff, but there's too many things. But the one thing going against it, I thought Arizona would be matched up somewhere with Dayton because the brothers that, you know, I bet you in the next 2 years or 3 years, if Dayton can keep making it, they'll match Arizona and Dayton up because Sean Miller's brother coaches at Dayton.
Sure.
You know, but yeah, to put Dayton and Ohio State playing against each other, Dayton wants to play Ohio State, and they'll never play them. So here the NCAA says, here, you guys are playing. And like you said, Jim, with the regional, and Verk said it, all 4 of those teams, or 3 out of those 4 teams, are going to have big crowds there in Buffalo. You know, that's not a huge advantage to Syracuse. They sell the same amount of tickets. There'll be more Syracuse people there because they're a bigger draw than Dayton. But Ohio State's they're going to pack it in, too.
And if Syracuse gets down early to either of those teams, or especially, early on Western Michigan, but of course the tide turns against the favorite. So and Syracuse traditionally this year been a slow starter, and they used to be a strong finisher. But I'm looking at all the 3 seed draws here and who potential second round matchups are. And I was going to say I was upset to see us have to face Ohio State. Just because they got senior Aaron Craft and we've played them. I know that they struggle from the perimeter, and they probably are a decent matchup for us overall. But I was less upset when I started looking around here, and you look at Iowa State, a 3 seed. They got to play the winner in North Carolina and Providence. And then, Creighton, if they should advance, they might face Baylor and Nebraska. I think I'd rather face Baylor and Nebraska than Ohio State.
I think and then you look at who some of the ones are going to have to play in the second round. Arizona's going to draw Gonzaga or Oklahoma State. I think I'd rather play Ohio State than either one of those two personally.
Or Baylor and Nebraska.
You know,
Kentucky almost beat
She's
the number one overall
Kentucky's got
seed
to play
today.
Wichita State. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's
That's
I
unfair.
think if you look at this tournament, what's going to be great about it is what Verk just said. If you're lucky enough to be a 1 or 2 seed, you're going to be favored heavily, and you probably should win that game. Outside of that, if you're a 3 seed, 4 seed, it's going to be a tough game. And then the very next game for every one of these teams is going to be extremely difficult. I can't look at any one of these teams and say, oh, they're guaranteed to. Even Florida against Pittsburgh. Florida's the number 1 seed. Pittsburgh could beat the crap out of Florida, really make it a close game.
I think when you get down to the last 32 teams, any one of them might have a shot to make a run.
there hasn't been that dominant team all year, really.
There's a good chance none of us will win that $1 billion. But, Providence winning the Big East. I went and just checked if last year's Big East league, this year, if it was the same league, had 7 teams in this year's tournament. Last year's ACC tournament, or ACC conference, would have had just 4, and NC State in the play-in game.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. And Providence winning
But
the Big East as it is this year is kind of interesting.
with that being said, how much does that open up with Louisville and UConn and Syracuse and Pitt leaving the Big East? That opened the door for a team like Providence, who would have won the Big East. If they probably wouldn't be in the tournament. They wouldn't have won the tournament, and they would even had
were a bubble
worse year.
team before.
Yeah, they were a bubble team. They may not have made it if they didn't win the championship, but if they had to play those teams over and over again, they're not in. And that wears on you. Look at what happened to Butler this year. They had to go night in and night out against those teams, and
Brad Stevens knew what he was doing.
I guess so. Or maybe
right.
that's because Brad Stevens isn't there. Who knows, though? But, yeah, looking at another 3 seed, Duke. Now, if they win, they get to play UMass, and I think that's kind of a nice, easier little draw. Now, Kevin's a Duke fan for some reason. Brad, what's your take on the 3 seeds overall? Is Syracuse on par with the other 3 seeds in terms of potential matchup, or they got a little tougher draw?
No, I think it matches up. Ohio State has a name reputation, but they're really not that good this year. They've had a lot of questionable losses. They don't score the basketball, kind of like Syracuse, really. But they, beyond Aaron Kraft, there's not a lot of consistency on that team. And I don't think that's if Syracuse plays the way they should play, that shouldn't be a difficult matchup. Whereas I see some of the other 3 seeds. I see Iowa State potentially get North Carolina in the second round. That's tough for them. They don't deserve that. I think they had a better year than they, deserving North Carolina coming in the second round. Duke as a 3, UMass, Tennessee, Iowa. I think that's probably a good matchup for Duke. But Creighton, potentially Baylor, Nebraska. Nebraska's been a dangerous team over the last month. That's
11 seed.
all trouble for Creighton.
Well, I actually went back and did a little look-see at how Syracuse ended their season and how they did in the NCAA tournament. I did every year for the past 10 years. I also did the 2 years we went to the Final Four prior to that. So in 1987, we finished 7-3, went 2-1 in the Big East tournament, losing to Georgetown, and then, of course, lost to Indiana. In 96, we finished the season 8-2, went 2-1 in the Big East tournament, lost to UConn, national runner-up to Kentucky. And then in 2003, we finished the season at 9-1, went 1-1 in the Big East tournament, losing to UConn, won the national championship. Then last year, 5-5 in the regular season, last 10 games of the regular season, 3-1 in the Big East tournament, losing in the finals to Louisville, and then losing in the Final Four to Michigan. So our Final Four runs, our 4 Final Four runs, the first 3, we finished the season fairly strong in a tough conference, had a respectable showing in our conference tournament, and then made a run. And then even last year when we struggled at 5-5, which a lot of people said, well, remember last year they struggled? Well, we did, 5-5 in our last 10, but then we went to the finals of the Big East tournament. So this year is different than those years. And even, the other years when we had injuries, the Onuaku injury and the Fab Melo in 2011, we finished 7-3, 1-1 in the Big East tournament, losing to UConn, go to the Sweet 16, lose to Marquette. The year before that, 8-2 finish, lost our opener to Georgetown, the game that Onuaku got hurt, went to the Sweet 16, lost to Butler. And then, of course, 2012, 10-0 to end the regular season, lost to Cincinnati in the semis at the Big East tournament, 1-1 at the Big East tournament that year, went to the Elite Eight, lost to Ohio State. So I'm trying to find some correlation, and I guess I'm not. The years that we finished the season strong and had a respectable showing in our conference tournament, we made a deep run. The exception being last year, going 5-5, but then finishing going 3-1 at the Big East tournament and losing, to Louisville. So the statistics aren't bearing out that things are going to go well for Syracuse in the postseason. But I tell you, guys, I got a gut feeling that everything's going to be just fine. I think CJ's going to heat up a little bit, and I think Cooney's got to snap out of it, right? He's got to, right?
No, I don't think he does have to.
He shot so great earlier this year.
If to put a positive spin on it for Syracuse, they lost Coleman, then Keita, then Grant. Grant looked terrific.
Yeah.
But maybe not playing those 2 extra games will be, or at least one or 2 extra games in the tournament that ruined our weekend, so to speak.
Yeah.
Maybe those few days off will actually help this Syracuse team. They'd never been in that arena before.
Yeah.
They didn't get a chance to play there previously, I don't believe. They didn't get a chance to practice there because of the other games going on. They had the double bye. Not all is lost. I just hope this third act of the play does not end in a Greek tragedy and end successfully.
And that's the part that so hard when you're like are a diehard fan of Syracuse or any college basketball team. But let's say Syracuse.
What about William and Mary? I was squeezing for them.
Poor Verk. They almost did it.
Rooting
Instead
for
it's the Delaware Hens.
Yeah, it was
with the colonial birth.
Korzy jinxed them, so
That was all my fault.
up 6 with a minute to go, and they're one of the 5 original Division I teams never to make the tournament, and would have been nice for the program, obviously, and I'd be a lot more excited right now if they were playing. But
And a shout out to Bobby Markle's Albany team, which may have the ugliest jerseys.
They're
Uniforms. It's the shorts,
uniforms.
Dave. Oh, those shorts are awful.
Well, I didn't like those sleeved jerseys either too much, but
Yeah, they are ugly.
but
I agree with you.
hey, let's go SUNY school.
Yeah, great names have been in a couple times in the last 4 or 5 years.
they gave Duke a pretty good game last year
Yeah.
as a 15-2 till the last couple minutes.
But as a Syracuse fan, since 1980 maybe, 33 years, 34 years, one year, they won the last game. And so when you sit here and look at these brackets, now that I'm 42 years old, and I don't know what's going to happen. They could lose to Western Michigan, and I'll just be depressed for 3 weeks. Or they can catch fire, find themselves in the NCAA tournament, maybe win a second national championship, which Jim Boeheim deserves. But I just don't know.
It will help. I thought it was huge for them to play in Buffalo. I went the last time they were there. It will be a pro-Syracuse crowd. I mean,
Even against Ohio State.
Even against Ohio State. When they played Gonzaga there, it was the first game of the doubleheader to go to the Sweet 16. I think it was in 2010. Everybody left after the first game. There was probably 15-20% of the crowd left. I felt bad for the other 2 teams. It was a terrible environment for that game. But it'll be all Syracuse. They are the second afternoon game. It just came out.
What time's that?
The first game is at 12:10, so whenever around 2:45.
2:40, I think.
Yeah.
Man.
So the second afternoon game, and there's a little break, and then I think every arena empties out, and then you have another set of tickets to go back in.
It's nerve-wracking experience, this NCAA tournament business, and I hate watching the first round games more than anything. More than anything, I hate watching because I just
Get Vermont flashbacks.
This is what it's all about, even if Syracuse went undefeated and got #1 seed and they lose in the second round, the season, who cares? They can, or they make a Final Four run now. It's a great year.
But they got the potential to, right? Obviously, they won 25 games in a row, and from the start of that stumble, which they lost to BC, classic donut game. Went to overtime. We could have pulled it out maybe, but we didn't. And then Grant gets hurt against Duke. We get a bum call at the end of the Duke game. And
I think
then after that, Grant's out. Keita's never 100%. And I guess what was most disappointing about the NC State game is I'm like, here we go. Everybody's finally healthy again. And then they lost. And so that kind of shattered what I believe to be true about Syracuse.
Yeah. Played great at Florida State. You're thinking they're kind of getting it together, but I think they're in the same boat with 20 other teams in this tournament. They have the potential to go to the Final Four, and they have the potential to lose in the first, and even more potential to lose in the second round. It's kind of an enigma this year with them, and a lot of these teams. If you go back over the year, there's just a play here or there decided a lot of games. You look at the Duke game, you look at the Pitt game, they throw it in from half court just about it. They could have had 5 more losses as well as they could have won every game this year too. But
you're a fan, Jim, and I think across the country, all but a handful of teams are saying, "Geez, our team has looked bad at times." I don't know how. There's so many question marks out there with all the teams. Without Wichita State probably believes they can win the whole thing, and they should feel confident because they were undefeated. And Florida obviously has had a great season. Louisville's gotten hot. Now Michigan State's kind of got everybody back. So
Virginia,
there's a few teams. Virginia probably feels they can
Louisville,
do it.
4 seed.
But Syracuse. I just looked for the future odds. They're 7th, and Vegas has them as a possible the 7th team to win it. So that's pretty good. Syracuse plays the zone. They play it well. They're going to hold team. They're definitely going to hold teams to under 65 points, and if they can score it, they'll win. If they can't, they could be out early.
Sometimes I think the zone hurts them in that first round game, because you can kind of the tempo. But then usually once they get past that first round, it's usually a little bit more effective. You play a team that's not used to seeing it.
Yeah, I hate when they're better.
When they're the superior athletic
right,
team,
and they sit back in the zone. It's easy to play against sometimes.
You have to appreciate that Wichita State coach, and that recent quote of his about wolves don't worry about the quotes about what sheep are saying.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a great quote.
And they're an experienced bunch, and
I think
they got an awful draw. But
they went to the Final Four last year, and they're better this year.
They had Louisville beat.
They got.
It was a great game.
They got 2 pros on their team. I mean, it's not like they're
Now this is a good team, and they're making a big deal out of it. Like you said, they got a tough draw. Well, they went through the draw. And they got Kentucky second. I think that's a hard one, but there's a lot of hard 8-9 games. You're gonna have to beat all those teams anyway to win it. You don't beat easy teams when you win the whole thing. So it's all a tough draw, I think. But
Well, before we step aside here and hear from our sponsors, we're gonna get your Final Four picks at the end of the show. But I want to know how far each of you think Syracuse is going to go in this tournament. I think we're going to pull it together. I think we're going to win the national championship. I swear I feel that way. Verk, what do you think? You got them losing to Ohio State, don't you? Second round.
No, I think they beat Ohio State. I think they're gonna struggle. In the I see them in the Sweet 16. Kansas is gonna be a tough matchup for them. I'll go as far as I'll have them beating Kansas and losing to Florida in the Elite Eight.
I gotta feel pretty good about that. Corzi, what do you think?
You know me, I just don't trust that zone early on. I think they can get out of Buffalo, and I don't. We're talking a lot of Ohio State. Like Brad said, it's name recognition. They're awful this year. I think a very bad Big Ten team. They don't shoot the ball well. That's going to be a dogfight with Dayton. They might play Dayton. I think they're better off playing Ohio State because they shoot it so bad. But if they do match up against Ohio State, I give the nod to Syracuse, and then probably losing the first game of the Sweet 16.
How about Duke while I got you here? How long is Duke going?
How about this? No ACC team makes the Elite Eight.
Sure, I could see that. Zach, what do you think for the Cuse?
Best case, Final Four.
Best case national champion?
No.
If you get to the Final Four, you can win it all. Come on.
I don't see that happening. I just don't think they consistently can score enough. In my bracket, I got them going grade 8.
Dave?
I haven't done a bracket yet. I have no idea who's going to win. I'm going to join you, and certainly I think if they win the first game and don't have some crazy way to end this saga of this season, they got a chance to do all kinds of stuff. Because as the great number 5 Matthew Verkey said not long ago, there's about 12 teams in this country that can win it, and Syracuse is one of them.
So why not? Why not? Brad, the professor, what is your analysis of Syracuse's chance at a national title? Where does the run end?
Yeah, I think they're going to beat Ohio State because I don't think Ohio State, like you said, is all that great. I think it's a tough matchup against Kansas if that's the Sweet 16 matchup. I think Andrew Wiggins can do what T.J. Warren's done both times that they played NC State and really just take it to the zone. I think he's a very serious weapon against anybody, but I think he tears that zone apart. I think Kansas beats Syracuse in the Sweet 16.
All right. Well, we got some Elite Eights, some Sweet 16s, some national champions. Everybody seems a little concerned about that first round matchup.
I think Kansas better be careful if they get in there against New Mexico too.
New Mexico is one of my sleepers, and really they shouldn't be a sleeper. I think that they got kind of screwed with a 7 seed. I thought they were like a 5 seed. They got tons of great wins. But we'll talk about all the other regions and all the other teams when we come back, and also we'll have some great, I assume, NCAA tournament trivia from Brad on Connor's Corner Trivia back in 60 seconds.
We hold on to the things that really matter. Welcome to Generations Bank.
Hi, I'm Jody Torrio. If you're like me, you've got stuff lying around the house that you want to recycle, but you're just not sure how, like broken toasters, vacuum cleaners, or microwaves. At Seneca Meadows, we have a drop-off for those. Bring in anything with a cord, and we'll make sure it's recycled properly through our partnership with 2TRG. It's that easy.
And welcome back to the Upstate Orange Podcast on FingerLakes1.com and FingerLakes1.tv. You're alongside for a special Selection Sunday edition, and the studio is packed. We've got Matt Verkey, Zac Young, Kevin Korzeniewski, Dave Barnick, and via telephone in Cincinnati, Brad Connor. And as we do every week, after the break, Brad has some great trivia for us on Connor's Corner. What do you got this week for us, Brad?
Guys, I have a cornucopia of NCAA tournament Syracuse-related trivia for you tonight. So hopefully you've brushed up on your Syracuse NCAA tournament history, and you'll be highly performing here in this session. So let me ask you this. When was the last time Syracuse was a 3 seed in this tournament?
2003.
Let's say
The 3 seed that year, but that was not the last time.
What was their seed when they won it? That was 2003.
Yeah, he said they've been a 3 seed
Yeah.
since then, he's saying.
were we a 3 seed last year?
No.
4, right?
Last year was a 4 seed.
Yeah.
I would have to go 2011 then.
2011 is a good call. You remember what happened when Syracuse was a 3 seed in 2011?
We lost to Marquette. That was Scoop's senior year, I believe, right? I know, that was his junior year.
And we all remember that game from Scoop, that backcourt play that he
Bad call.
didn't make.
Deion Waiters went crazy in that game, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the only guy that even made it possible. And then, of course, we came back and beat Marquette last year to go to the Final Four, which we're seeing a lot of the same teams, I guess, in here in this NCAA tournament. So, Brad, what else you got?
The 4 Final Four teams that Syracuse has had in their history under Jim Boeheim, what were the seeds of those teams? We talked about the 2003 team was a 3 seed. Do you guys remember the seeds of the other Final Four teams? We talked about last year, too. They were 4 seeds. So, 96 and 87, do you guys remember the seeds of those teams?
96, we were a 5 seed. Is that right?
Anybody else have any guesses?
I'm going to say 5 seed 96. I'm going to say 4 seed 87.
I would have guessed a higher seed in 87 than that, like a 2 or a 3 seed.
I don't know.
We're a bunch of bad
seed in
seeds.
96.
What's that?
It was a 4 seed in 96.
4 and 96, okay.
And they were a 2 seed in 1987.
Oh, a 2
They
seed.
beat Carolina, and Carolina was a 1, so that was a 1-2 in the Elite 8.
We watched that game together, Brad, in 1987.
We did. That was one of my happiest days as a youngster.
You know, old J.R. Reed and company. DC was beat J.R. Reed.
So let me ask you this. True or false? I don't think we have to worry about this year, but true or false? Syracuse has never scored 100 points in an NCAA tournament game.
100.
That's false.
I would say false as well.
I'll go with true.
I'm going true. Manhattan. I think that they scored a lot one game.
For the falses, do you guys remember any of the games where they might have scored over 100?
How about the no?
The year that we beat Navy in the Dome, or lost to Navy in the Dome second round, I think that first round game we really took it to Brown or somebody.
Jim, that's a fantastic call.
Really?
They scored 101 against Brown in the first round in 1986. You're absolutely right.
That is impressive.
It's in there. I just sometimes don't know how to get it out. Something. I don't know why I remember that.
Lock it, apparently. There's two other times Syracuse scored over 100. The following year in '87, Final Four team beat Western Kentucky in the first round, had 104. And then in '89, first round game against Bucknell, Syracuse had 104. So that's their all-time single-game record, 104 points in an NCAA tournament game. So individually, this is an easy one, guys. Who has a Syracuse scoring record in one tournament game?
John Walls. Oh, one game?
Carmelo?
Single game scoring record.
McNamara.
For Syracuse in an NCAA tournament game.
McNamara.
Jerry McNamara is correct. You guys remember the game?
BYU?
Yeah, the BYU game, 43.
BYU, he had 43.
His sophomore year?
2004. So yeah, sophomore year. Who has the all-time Syracuse single-game rebound record?
Derek Coleman, championship game, 1987. 19.
Very, very good. 19 in Derek Coleman championship game. Who's played in the most NCAA tournament games in their career for Syracuse University?
Brandon Trish.
Incorrect.
Oh, no, that's right. Freshman year was an NIT year, wasn't it?
No, they just didn't play in as many games.
Oh. Wow, if it wasn't
Brandon
Trish.
Trish played in 14 NCAA tournament games. This player's played in 15.
He's not on the coaching staff now, is he?
He is not on the Syracuse coaching staff.
So that means it's not McNamara, Autry, or Hopkins.
On someone else's coaching staff, I'll put it that way.
Can't be Louis Orr. He just got fired again. Poor guy. We should bring him.
You can coach the big men. We need that help.
Yeah, we should bring him back.
It's got to be somebody off one of their Final Four teams, I would imagine, right?
Right. That's a good way to think of it.
Todd Bergen.
Not a bad guess, but no.
Oh, well.
Sims? I just know Sims is on a coaching staff, but I don't think he played in that many games.
Think of one of the greatest sort of 3 or 4 year runs that Syracuse has had in the tournament.
We've had a good 3 or 4 year run in the tournament.
Yeah, we have now, I guess, but nobody sticks around for 4 years if they're any good anymore.
I want to say Derek Coleman, but he lost to Richmond. That was a one and done.
No, that was the year after Coleman left.
Oh, I'm going to say Derek Coleman.
Derek Coleman's incorrect. But here's the counterpoint to this. Derek Coleman has played the most minutes in his NCAA tournament career, but he didn't play the most games, surprisingly.
Sherman Douglas.
No. All right, let's end this.
Stevie Thompson.
Steve Thompson.
Stevie Thompson played 15.
Dave
NCAA
got
tournament
that
games.
before right under the gun. I just want to give him credit.
I needed to phrase it in the form of a question, though, right?
Dave, did you say Stevie Thompson? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I
He
did.
did.
I was thinking it because I knew he coached. What is on the San Diego's?
He coached like a community college. Or
No,
not
he's on the staff right now of
Wasn't he the head
somebody
coach?
they
or something?
played.
Head coach
in
of like Crenshaw, not high. It was
Somebody
Somewhere on
like,
the West Coast.
yeah,
somebody they
Los
played in the
Angeles.
last couple of years.
They played him.
Right.
It's a Division II
Exhibition.
team. They played him an exhibition game.
Like Cal State Los Angeles or
Yeah.
something.
Let's get him back on the staff. Got more tournament wins than anybody. Must be able. We could use him right about now.
Let's get Sutherland back on.
And the thing
floor.
with wasn't one of Wallace's teams was on probation. They didn't go to the tournament one year, right?
Yeah, that was 94, and that was, or maybe it was 93, but I tell you, it was one of the most heartbreaking things ever. I went to Syracuse. My freshman year, I get there, and we got one of the best teams in the country, and we lose to Richmond. Now, I sat in Sadler Hall with my friends. Some of them from Boston, North Carolina. They were from all over the place, but none of them were like really diehard Syracuse fans. This was like their first season of Syracuse students getting to know the program, and we lose to Richmond, and I was devastated. And then, of course, Brad, who went to Richmond,
after that game,
called me and mocked me because he was a freshman at Richmond and I was a freshman at Syracuse that year. What are the odds? So then I go outside.
I watched that game with your brother, Kevin, the Richmond-Syracuse game. I had some Richmond fans in the house that night.
Oh, he was definitely rooting for Richmond with you.
He was.
So I go outside Sadler Hall that night, and you could hear screams across campus, like screams of agony. So then, okay, that's great. I don't even remember what happened the next year, but the year after that, they go on probation. So one of the years that I'm a student there, we're on probation. We had a decent team, too. But I'll tell you what, when the season ended, that was it. That was the worst. All right, getting a little off topic,
Well,
Brad.
the most games, but let me ask you this: who has the highest scoring average, the highest scoring average in his NCAA tournament career?
Jerry McNamara.
Carmelo Anthony.
Correct. Incorrect.
Wow, I figured that 43-pointer might have.
The question is the highest scoring average in Syracuse postseason history?
Right,
That's
NCAA
right,
tournament.
NCAA tournament.
Why not Dave Bing?
Dave Barnick says
Not a
Dave
bad guess, but I don't think he played in too many tournaments. In
He
the
only got to
60s,
play in one. They had one game.
Syracuse only played in 1966. It was the only NCAA tournament they played in the 60s.
What did he
I didn't know
score?
if he was on that team.
Okay.
But you said scoring average, correct, Brad?
Right.
Scoring average, correct.
Don't know.
Hakeem Warwick?
It wasn't
Correct.
Keita, I know that.
How about John Wallace?
Not John Wallace, though. John Wallace has the most total points in his career NCAA tournament in Syracuse history, but not the scoring average. Because John Wallace played 11 games, and this guy played only 7 games.
Wesley Johnson?
Wes Johnson?
Wes Johnson did not play 7.
He didn't
NCAA
play
tournament
7,
for
yeah.
Syracuse.
How about Moten?
Lawrence Moten is correct.
Wow.
Moten averaged 23.3 points a game in his NCAA tournament career in 7 games. That's getting it done.
Could have got even more if it
Sure.
wasn't for that stupid Arkansas game. Bad calls at the end of that Arkansas game.
You know what? Well, it's in overtime. He probably got more points out of the overtime.
That's true.
Timeout. Technical foul. Right?
Yeah, I guess that wasn't a bad call. That was just a bad
It was a
decision.
bad call by Lawrence Moten to call a timeout.
Yeah.
That is not surprisingly less well known as Weber's timeout because it was in the final. But same exact situation.
Against the defending champions.
Yeah. When Arkansas used to be good. Nolan Richardson.
And then Arkansas went back to the finals that year after they beat Syracuse that day. Lost to UCLA.
What else you got?
That's all I got.
That's all you got?
I mean, I could go on and on, but
No, I think that
Cover
was
Rackets
pretty
cover.
good. That was pretty good. It was good trivia, and I think we did pretty well as a whole on most of those.
yeah. Yeah, I
Well-
was impressed. You guys did good. You studied up. I appreciate that.
Let's turn it back around and look at this year's bracket again, and let's take it one region at a time, and let's start with the East. And this is where we wanted Syracuse to be because they would go to the regional in Madison Square Garden, and all that's going to happen without them. But Virginia, the number 1 seed in the East, and looking through this bracket, I think that a lot of people are saying that this is the softest bracket. You guys agree? The softest region? Villanova's the 2 seed.
Yeah, I think that they're a week 2. Iowa State, they can score the ball. They don't really play a lot of defense, but they're fun to watch. They can really score. I think they probably got the best 4 in Michigan State. A lot of people were picking Michigan State watching the selection show today.
I think the West is a little easier, personally.
I think the East is the easiest. I think you got the weakest 1, you got the weakest 2, and I agree with that with Verk on that. I think East is the easiest. So it would have been nice if the Cuse was in there.
What's your thoughts on the East region, Dave?
Easy's the wrong word. It's There's so many teams in all these regions that it's a coin flip, which is why my Final Four is going to be based other than chalk. But if Michigan State isn't the best number 4, there's a little controversy with that statement that Matt just made because Louisville's a number 4 too, but they're 2 pretty good number 4s.
And Michigan State wasn't healthy a lot of the year. They finally get healthy.
The one team in that gets no respect, I was listening to all the analysts, is Brad's Cincinnati Bearcats team. And maybe they don't have any scores outside of Kilpatrick, but I love watching that guy play.
You know, I was going to ask Brad about Cincinnati in the East. They come in at the 5 seed. They got Harvard. What are your prospects for the Bearcats, Brad?
They're slightly offensive limited as well. Beyond Kilpatrick, they don't really score the ball, but they'll defend anybody as well as anybody out there. They defend. I don't know much about Harvard. I'll admit. If they can bottle up Kilpatrick, I think Harvard could win that game. But Cincinnati just defends, and I'd be very interested to see the Cincinnati-Michigan State second-round game. I don't think Cincinnati has nearly the horses, but again, it will come down to defense, and if they can shut some of the Michigan State guys down, I think Cincinnati can make a good run. I think, like I said at the beginning of the show, I think the American Conference teams really got a little bit shafted in terms of seed. Because
SMU didn't get the bid.
They could have easily been. I mean, that's a 5-6 loss team. They could have easily made a case for a 3 seed or a 4 seed. I mean, they were a top 10 team 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and you mentioned the AAC getting the shaft. SMU, Larry Brown's Mustangs, had a great season, and
yeah, they couldn't win on the road though. They got all their wins at home, and I like.
Well, you know how tough it is to play at SMU.
Yeah, it's very well. They got a new gym.
Well, I suppose it is. Yeah,
they got a new gym.
They
sold it out all the time. It was great. It was real hard to play there this year. They talked about that, but
their non-conference strength of schedule was like 300.
Yeah, terrible.
And something.
Yeah, it was awful. And Cincy and Michigan State, if they play, Harvard beat UNM last year in the first round. But Cincy and State, I mean, you're talking about men playing basketball. You know, Cincy's got all seniors, and I love watching them play and defend. And I love Kilpatrick. I've loved them for 4 years. But, man, that would be a great game, Cincy and Michigan State, I think.
Zach, you like Mick Cronin, Cincinnati coach? Now, he's a guy that's
he's a grinder.
Polarizing. Yeah, a lot of people think he's over the officials.
Between him and Izzo, they should just let those guys like wrestle at half court through the middle of the game if they play. They're both really intense.
Izzo will kick his ass. He's only like freaking 5 foot tall.
There's a lot of Cincinnati fans that don't particularly care for Mick Cronin, and I think they'll always be comparing against Bob Huggins, and Bob Huggins is the legend as far as the Bearcats fan is concerned. But Cronin's got, I mean, he had nothing. The cupboard was bare, and he's gotten them back to, a prestige program here. And, they're going to have to do some work if, once they lose Kilpatrick to keep that. But I think they've got a good chance to make a decent run if they can defend like they've been doing.
That would be a size differential in a fight, Huggins and Cronin. The size of the ring would determine the outcome of that one.
Huggins could just sit on him. So I don't want your pick for Final Four out of the East because we'll get everybody's Final Four at the end of the show, but I do want to know out of the East which 10 seed or higher, which Cinderella has the best chance of making a run. And by making a run, let's say which 10 seed or higher is going to make it to the Sweet 16. And I'm looking down here, and a part of me wants to say NC Central because I picked them in a season-long pool this year.
They beat NC State.
They got me a lot of points, yeah. But I really like the Providence Friars because Bryce Cotton's one of the best players in the country. They've proven they can win in a tournament environment. And if they do get back to get to the Sweet 16, they're going to be back in Madison Square Garden. So kind of a tough matchup against North Carolina, but they're your 11 seed. What you going to do? But I think they can win that game. I think they can advance to the Sweet 16 and maybe make a run a la 1987 when they last went to the Final Four. Korzy, who do you got as a sleeper?
Well, you took my, I agree with you on Providence just because I think Carolina is struggling a little bit right now. And but if you look at you want to go 10 under, I like St. Joe's. UConn's a tough team. Obviously, they play Villanova. But I really am a big fan of Phil Martelli and St. Joe's, and I think they got a team that complements each other. I like the A10.
Respect, which is kind of crazy, but to directly call out another conference in comparison, that's tough.
Well, I got you here, Brad. Who's your sleeper in the East?
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. I think St. Joe's is one that I really look to. I think UConn's beatable if you can shut down Napier. Boatwright's a reasonable weapon, but I think St. Joe's can contend with those two guys. And then a St. Joe's Villanova game is a hardcore Big Five battle that I can see St. Joe's. That's one you kind of throw the records out, and those guys just get after it. And St. Joe's could make a good run. They beat VCU today and made a nice run in the A10 tournament. So I think that's a dangerous 10 seed.
Zach?
I'm going with the same thing those guys said, St. Joe's. Just for the fact that I think St. Joe's, I don't think UConn's that good, first of all. St. Joe's Nova would be a pretty cool environment. And those kids, they got to get just a little bit extra amp that, they see Villanova over there who gets a lot more publicity than them.
Intra-city battle.
Yeah, I could see St. Joe's, they're hot. Be a couple good teams in their tournament. I watched them today, actually. And Phil Martelli's grandson is hysterical if you haven't seen that. Go to YouTube. He sits right behind him, and he has a long tie on, and he imitates him the whole game. He crosses his arms. He's got a dry erase board. It's pretty fun.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
So search for Phil Martelli's grandson on YouTube.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Dave, who's your sleeper?
I was going to go, might as well ensure that they won't win a game and go with St. Joe's. That's, the other thing, when we did this show a couple months ago, one of the teams in this East, North Carolina, we weren't even sure, it was you, me, and Matt, that they were going to get in the tournament.
Oh, yeah. They
Tar
had a great second half of the season until it kind of sputtered at the very end, but certainly that's, they get in as a 6 seed. But you were right. A couple months ago, they were on the outside looking in. So there you go. If you're filling out your brackets, we got some St. Joe's love. We got some Providence love out of the East. We got some Mick Cronin love. So some teams to look at. But before we get out of the East, number 1 seed Virginia. Are they a legitimate national championship contender? They just won the ACC regular season and the tournament. I guess like Miami did last year. Miami didn't do anything. But is Virginia a legitimate national contender, Verk?
I don't think they score enough. I mean, watch them today. They're impressive through this run through the tournament. They had a nice ACC schedule. They didn't have to play Duke twice. They didn't have to play Syracuse twice. They'll be in every game. I kind of think they're kind of like Syracuse. They're so good. That's a little better right now. They're so good defensively. I think they can score the ball a little better than Syracuse can. I really like the style of what they do. I like what Coach Bennett has them doing. I just don't know if I see them getting by a Michigan State team who seems to be peaking right now. But UVA is going to defend and rebound with anybody in the country. If they can, I think if they can score 65, 70 points, they got a good shot.
Anybody here going to pencil in Virginia in the Final Four?
No,
I
don't. I love Coach Bennett. I love what they do. They work you on offense. They're going to take great shots. They're not going to turn the ball over. They defend. They rebound. They do all the things you should do, and they do it well. But I just don't think they have enough to really make a huge impact in this tournament.
What do you think, Brad?
I agree. Well, I agree to an extent, but I think there's one thought that I can't escape. It seems like we've just been underestimating these guys all season, and before Syracuse played them, we just kind of dismissed them and said they were smoke and mirrors and they weren't that good, and they took Syracuse behind the woodshed, frankly, and Grant was out second half, and we get that, but it's a solid team with very few weaknesses, really, what I see. I mean, keep underestimating them and they'll make a run to the Final Four. I don't think that they're a national championship type talented team, but they do everything and do it well. I don't see any teams that really match up more favorably to them in that bracket.
All right, fair enough. Verk, did I get your sleeper pick out of the East?
You didn't, and I like Providence, like some guys are saying, but I like Harvard to beat Cincinnati, and but we're talking Sweet 16.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna get by Michigan State.
Same reason you're probably not picking Delaware. They got Michigan State. If Delaware wasn't playing Michigan State, could they make a run?
I would probably not. I mean, they're Delaware's a pretty good team, but you know, they won the Colonial regular season and the tournament, obviously. But I'll go. I think I'll go with Providence.
Okay, there you go. Let's get out of the East, head up to the West. Number 1 seed Arizona. And whoever comes out of the West will play whoever comes out of the East in the Final Four. And who was it? Was it you, Zach, that said maybe the West is weaker than the East?
I think it is.
How come?
Wisconsin, I think, is a solid team. I just think Oklahoma as a 5 seed's kind of not a great team.
Yep.
I don't see a lot of teams that can challenge, some of the upper echelons. I like Arizona in that bracket. Creighton is a team that could get hot, but they could lose to, they've lost to some weaker
Baylor
teams. Yeah, they could lose.
Matchup.
They could lose to Baylor or Nebraska.
Yeah.
I think Nebraska's playing well. San Diego State, I just don't think they're good. I don't think that conference is any good at all. The way they performed last year in the tournament as well, I think they're a weak 4 seed. So that's why I think it's a little weaker.
I think it's tough break for Arizona to potentially have to play Oklahoma State and Marcus Smart.
Agree with you on that.
I mean, one reason Oklahoma State's a 9 seed because Smart was out for a while. They went on a little slide. He comes back. They start playing good again. But as a number 1 seed, Arizona team was number 1 in the country for much of the season to get Oklahoma State is a second-round matchup.
I think Gonzaga beats Oklahoma State.
They got an injury. Pangos is hurt.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that. What's wrong with him?
I'm not a doctor.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
I think it's Pangos that's hurt, but I could be wrong. Before you fill out your brackets, confirm that online. But yeah, I think that's tough. Oklahoma State, Arizona, second round.
Like a team like Oklahoma State, they kind of remind me almost of like an Ohio State. They had a tough run through there. I don't think Oklahoma State's that good. They got some talent. Marcus Smart's been even. They lost 4 in a row before Smart got hurt. And they went on to lose 7, 8 in a row. They have some talent, but I just don't see them being good enough to beat Arizona.
They stick 3 Big 12 teams in here. Now, the Big 12, highly regarded, obviously, due to a lot of the seedings in this tournament.
It was a little bit down from where it's been, but, they're 29-4. They're doing some things right. I easily see them as a Sweet 16 team, and I think they can give Arizona trouble. Honestly, I think that could potentially be a tough matchup for Arizona. San Diego State's got athletes, and they're very well coached, as we know. Fishers.
They won at Kansas, right?
Back.
Yes, they did.
Yep.
Full-strength Kansas team, too.
But, yeah, that's a dangerous 4 seed, I think, San Diego State. I think they can get past Oklahoma, and yeah, it's I'd be really eager to see the matchup against Arizona.
Creighton. Doug McDermott, probably one of the best players. Dave, you got that Sports Illustrated cover.
Right there.
Yeah, hold it right up to the camera.
Larry Bird.
It's a mimic of Larry Bird's Sports Illustrated cover, and he went on to the Final Four to play against Magic Johnson. But one of, if not the best player in the country, Creighton out of the Big East. Do you like their odds, Dave?
I do.
Are you going to pencil them in?
I am. It's,
What do you like about the Blue Jays?
Well, McDermott, the cover, someone's got to have emerged that's not on the number 1 or 2 chalk lines. It might as well be them. He's coached by his father, and they seem to
3,000-point scorer.
Do I really expect them to go all the way? No. Am I going to put them on my Final Four? Why not? Yep. Okay. That's one of my early selections.
I like Creighton there. I think that is going to be a great second-round matchup with Creighton and Baylor because Creighton really spreads the floor. They move without the ball. McDermott's known for it, and they can shoot. They got McDermott obviously can shoot. He's 6'8", 6'9", however big he is, and they got another big guy that can shoot the ball. Their point guard's really good. So I think that'll be an intriguing matchup with Baylor's 2-3 zone going against Creighton and those shooters. I think Baylor beats Nebraska. I like Nebraska. They play hard, very athletic, but they don't play well away from their home court as well. So I think Baylor wins that. And Baylor a 6 seed. They've been playing really good lately. You know, they got the shooters, they got the height, Austin, and they've been around. And I like Baylor, but that Creighton Baylor is going to be one of the better matchups on round 2. I think or what's called round 3 now. But I'm going with Creighton.
Wear your sunglasses. That'd be the coaching strategy if you're playing Baylor.
That's right. It was some bright uniforms.
The NCAA, see the uniforms they're going to wear? It said Sick'em Bears on them, but they said they couldn't wear them because you can only have your logo or your mascot on there or whatever, something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were awesome. They looked awesome, but the NCAA said they can't wear them.
Yeah, Baylor and Oregon really do a crazy job with their uniforms. And Albany, of course.
Well, all uniforms aside, looking at this West bracket, who's the sleepers? I personally like BYU. It's a 10 seed to potentially beat Oregon and then potentially beat Wisconsin and get to the Sweet 16.
Is Jimmer Fredette back on the team?
No, they're not going to need him.
And they're missing their best player. Gonzaga's not, but I think Baylor is. Maybe I got two teams confused. BYU's missing their best player.
Yeah, their second leading scorer.
Kyle Collinsworth.
Yeah.
Not the head coach of the varsity boys basketball team for Romulus. Same name. He tore his ACL. But don't forget about Tyler Haws mid-range shooting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I won't.
Anybody else got some sleepers for me out of the West? Verk?
If you talk, I mean, we're going 10 seeds and below for a sleeper.
10 seeds and upper, yeah. 9 and 8 seeds.
I like Arizona a lot coming out of this bracket. Sleeper, I don't like BYU at all. I'll go with Nebraska. I think 10 and below, I'd have to go with Nebraska to make a little noise. Although I don't think they're going to beat Baylor, but if I had to pick one, I'd go with Nebraska.
I kind of like American too, but I'm going to stick with BYU. Zach, who you got for sleeper out of the West?
New Mexico State, 13 seed. Just based on the Mountain West performance last year, again, purely. New Mexico State's been to the tournament a couple times recently, too.
Players on this team. And they got...
New Mexico State's not Mountain West, though, Zach.
They're not.
No.
San Diego. That's who they play, right?
Yeah, they play. Oh, so you're saying they're going to beat San Diego. Okay.
Yeah. I hate the Mountain West. As I mentioned.
UNLV didn't even make the field. They had a good team this year, but they didn't deserve it. I'm not saying they deserved a bid, but out of the Mountain West. That's always a league that I think you look at it preseason, you're like, Mountain West is going to be really good this year, but they never produced by the end of the year. I mean, there's some years where they say the Mountain West is way better than the Pac-10. But, Dave, you got a sleeper out of the West?
Well, one of my favorite all-time high school teams was the Hickory High Huskers of Indiana. So we'll go with Nebraska and the Huskers if you're looking for a 10 seed and above.
There's a lot of Nebraska love running around the country right now. Traditionally a football school, but they got a good basketball team this year. Go figure. Corzi, you got a sleeper in the West?
Yeah, I like North Dakota State to possibly go to the Sweet 16. Beating Oklahoma and then beating San Diego.
Wow.
The Jackrabbits, I think they are.
Nice.
Are they the Jackrabbits?
I think you're correct.
Not
They
the
can score it.
Frackers.
They can score it.
Brad, do you like the Jackrabbits? Who's your sleeper?
I agree with a bunch of you guys. I think Nebraska has a lot of nice wins. They played great in the last month, and I see Baylor as a beatable team. And that talked about potential rivalry games in the second round when we were talking about Villanova St. Joe's. I think Nebraska Creighton, you could see the same environment and same
In St. Louis.
intensity in that game.
I don't know. That would be in St. Louis, I think.
Yeah, so that'll be great to watch. It'll be great for the schools and for the fans. And Nebraska could have something that I think Nebraska's played a tougher schedule than Creighton has, and I think Nebraska could possibly win that game and go into the Sweet 16. I don't see too many others. I mean, Oklahoma State, I think they could, if they really ride Marcus Smart, could be in the Sweet 16, which could be the first number 1 seed to go down is Arizona. If they match up to Oklahoma State and lose that game, that might be a sleeper type pick, even though they're not a 10 and below. But I thought about BYU, but you guys were talking about their scorer Collinsworth out, and that was the reason why I kind of shied away from them.
Well, there you have it for the West. If you're filling out your brackets as you're listening along, a lot of people love Nebraska. I like BYU despite the injury. And we got the Jackrabbits of North Dakota State. His Corsi sleeper pick to win it all Before we get out of the West and move on to the Midwest, Arizona's chance to make it to the Final Four, percentage-wise. Dave.
To win it all or get to the Final Four?
Get to the Final Four percentage is a 1 seed.
25%.
No, that's kind of low for a 1 seed.
Decent chance. Good team. They suffered that big injury earlier in the year, but they're still very
good. Bounce back, though. On the couch, Zach and Korzy, percentage for Arizona to beat in the Final Four.
70.
That's just as confident. That's more confident than Dave was. Yeah. Korzy, you got a percent.
Seth, if he's that going 70, I'd probably say they got a 60% chance to get out of that.
Sean Miller, great defense. Sure. Yeah. Verk?
50.
50. Brad?
I'm going to say 40.
But I think you can consider 40% high for any 1 seed, right? If you go mathematically, 40% chance any 1 seed makes it to the Final Four, that's a high percentage if you go statistically.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it is. You're absolutely right.
So you're showing confidence at 40.
Teams out there. I'm pretty confident in Arizona. I've got them as one of my Final Four teams. I think they're the class of that bracket.
Yeah, I'm going to go about 35% on Arizona, which I still think is a vote of confidence.
Not that confident. 70% is confident.
70% is ultra confident. And
so far, this sounds like my high school grades.
All right, let's get out of the West here and take it to the Midwest. Actually, before we take it to the Midwest, real quick, let's stop back at the South where Syracuse is. Florida being the number 1 seed, probably one of the best teams. They haven't lost since December 2nd. Now they're playing in the SEC, but still not losing since December 2nd. Give me your percentage on that number 1 seed making the Final Four. I'll start. I'm going to say, since they're in Syracuse's bracket, 15%. Brad, what do you think about the Gators?
They're a little closer to 50 in my book.
50?
Yep.
Well, you love the Gators. Okay.
They
Dave?
I got to give them about a 60% nod. I like they got a great coach. But as watching them against, what was that, Tennessee or Georgia yesterday?
Tennessee.
Boy, without a couple of dumb plays, they beat them down the stretch.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. They look a lot better in the final.
Came down to the last possession. Kentucky had a shot.
Well, I guess that's right. Yeah, they let it slip away a little bit.
It literally slipped away.
Kid fell.
Kid fell down, slipped, but the game-winning shot.
Percentages over there, you guys on the couch, for Florida.
Florida?
Final Four.
45.
What's your confidence level, Korzy?
Yeah, I hate the SEC this year, but they got Wilbekin who could lead them to any game. If I gave Arizona 60, I'm gonna give Florida 60% as well.
All right, Verk.
20.
Not high on Florida, huh?
I think it's a tough bracket.
It is tough bracket.
They're gonna have to beat possibly Kansas, Syracuse, UCLA. I mean, there's some tough teams in there. Pittsburgh. I mean, I think they got a tougher road than Arizona does personally. But
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. How about our sleepers coming out of the South?
I'll go first on that one.
Sure.
Tulsa.
Danny Manning.
Aren't they
Danny
coach?
Manning.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
And he's done a fine job with them. Although they got a tough first-round match.
Yeah, sure they do.
It's against Steve Alford.
Yep. Two great 80s legends right there.
Yep, matching up. Zach, what do you got, a sleeper out of the South?
I like Dayton. I like
Okay.
their matchups. I think they can beat Ohio State.
Then they'd have to beat Syracuse, though.
Oh, you take
Listen, I want Syracuse to win with all my heart, but they're a scary team. Especially, they got nothing to lose at that point.
That's true, and I tell you, it's better than picking Western Michigan. How about you, Korzy? Sleeper?
I'm gonna go with Stephen F. Austin right there. They only
The
have
13 seed.
They only have 2 losses. They haven't lost since November.
12 seed.
12 seed, okay.
12-5,
12-5,
yeah.
okay.
I like VCU, but Stephen F. Austin hasn't lost in a while. They obviously don't play a schedule as some of these other teams, but they could win that game.
several of the
Syracuse played them a couple years ago, first round.
Several of the analysts, ESPN and CBS analysts, were saying that's the best 5-12
Best 5-12
pick to make.
Yeah, I'll go with them also just because I heard a lot of people talking about them that they might beat VCU. I couldn't tell you anything about them other than some of the experts were high on them to advance to the Sweet 16.
Brad?
Yeah, I agree with absolutely all what you guys just said. Stephen F. Austin, they haven't lost since November 23rd, I think. They only lost twice, both on the road. They haven't played the same schedule, but VCU's beatable. They didn't play a great game today. I think if you've got seniors and guys that can handle VCU's pressure, I think that's the matchup that VCU can be taken down in. And then, I don't know, UCLA's, it's a decent 4 seed, but it's one that I think we could see an upset too. In the 5-12 and the 12 seeds tend to do pretty well for whatever reason in this tournament. So they're when I look at all the double-digit seeds, I don't see too many that really strike me. I think probably the biggest upset would be if the Pitt Panthers actually won a game in this tournament.
Good point.
Well, I got to go with Stephen F. Austin as well. They 90 feet of basketball press. It's they're fairly deep, and they play fast. And it's just sometimes it seems like the college basketball landscape has changed, where most every team, the bulk of the games are defensive battles and low scoring. How many times this year have you heard someone say, "First one to 50 wins this game"? College basketball was never that way.
When you watch Syracuse play every time, I mean,
well,
that's
that's
usually
true.
the case.
That's too many Syracuse's games, but it's true of a lot of schools,
Big
virtually
Ten's
the
the same
entire
way,
ACC.
And
plays
what
that way.
about the fact that VCU was the Cinderella team? Was that 2 years ago, right?
Shaka Smart, yeah.
Yeah. Now we're saying they're the big favorite against the Cinderella team.
Yeah. Well,
VCU went to what two Final Fours in a row, right?
Yeah, not too shabby. Moving to the Midwest now. This is Wichita State's bracket. Kentucky gets dropped down there to an 8 seed, and they got to play Kansas State. Either one of those teams will give Wichita State a challenge. St. Louis may be a little undervalued at the 5 seed. Louisville really gets the shaft at the 4 seed. I will never understand that. I mean, you can look at body of work. You can look at everything. You can do the eye test, and Louisville, not a 4 seed. And there's Duke's in there, of course. Texas, who's been flying under the radar this year at the 7 seed. And Michigan, the 2 seed after losing in the Big Ten tournament final today to Michigan State. And, I like Wichita State, to be honest with you, coming out of there. Let's play the number 1 seed percentage game. Wichita State all year it's been talked about. And, I see a team with 2 NBA players. I see a team returning a lot of players from a Final Four team. And I see a team that hasn't lost a single game all year. And I don't care what league you're in. If you go 32-0, are they? 32-0. 34-0. It's impressive. I give Wichita State, even though they got to play Kentucky in the second round, even though they're in the same bracket as Duke, who will probably get all the calls, I'm gonna go Wichita State 50%, which is my highest confidence level of any number 1 seed. Verk, what do you think about the Shockers?
20%.
Okay, not as confident as I am.
No. I mean, it's hard to get to the Final Four. I mean, so
It is. It's hard to go undefeated too in the regular season. Corzy?
I'm going to go 40%, and I kind of like that rematch with Louisville from last year in the Sweet 16, if that could happen. And I'm with you on Louisville being a low force, that 4 seed.
I give them a 50% chance too, which means that no other team every other team has 0% chance. By that thinking, Zach, you got a percentage on the Shockers? What's your take?
5%.
You don't like them at all? I think they're
Tough
overvalued.
road. I
Do
like
they deserve a number 1 seed?
I like them. It's just tough road. I can see at first they're going to win the first round game most likely, but then Kentucky or Kansas State's not an easy game. Then potentially Louisville.
Yep.
Then potentially Duke or Michigan. I would just Vegas-wise, I bet they're an underdog in 2 of those 3 games. Versus either Duke or Michigan, Louisville, and Kentucky. It would be pretty close.
Dave?
I'm not going to end up when we do our Final Fours picking them, but for answering this question, I'm going to put them as my lead favorite at 65%.
65. Wow. So you're not making any sense. You got them 65, but you're not going to pencil them in later?
That's correct.
All right. Brad?
45.
What do you think that they're overhyped at 32-0, and not overhyped, but I mean, you think? I guess it's been the question all year.
If they were in the West, they'd be my favorite. They're in the Midwest, and I think that's a tough bracket. Louisville is the hottest team in the country right now, with the exception of maybe Florida. And that's one team that I do not want to go anywhere near if I'm Wichita State or really anybody in this field. I think that's tough for Wichita. And then if they even got past there to play the Duke or Michigan, those are all pretty good tests. So I think they've got a tougher road than any of the other ones.
All right, well, let's take it on the flip side and look at some potential sleepers here. And I'll keep it right here with you, Brad. 10 seed or higher, make it to the Sweet 16. The people need to know as they fill out their brackets what we think.
I like Arizona State. I think they've got a guard, Jahi Carson, who can really put a team on his shoulders. And guards are really what you need in this tournament. I think I like them to beat Texas, and I think they can take Michigan. I think Michigan can be taken down if Stauskas isn't shooting well. I think they're capable of an upset, and I look for Arizona State.
Okay. Dave?
I don't like a lot of these high seeds in this particular bracket because there's too many good teams in those top several seeds. But you know what? Let's go NC State to surprise everybody.
So they win their
a couple
opener
of games
against Xavier to get in,
Yeah.
and then they're going to win 2 more maybe against St. Louis.
They ride one of the best players in the country, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. Zach?
Oh, Mercer.
I was going to say Mercer, too.
Give him a shot.
Yeah, hey, why not? Duke has been...
I have seen him play for about 5 minutes this year.
I'm not even sure why you bring Zach on this show.
But Mercer, very similar to what VCU, way back in the day when they beat Duke.
In Buffalo.
Eric Maynard. They don't have an Eric Maynard, though.
Same type team. And a couple analysts didn't like that for Duke today. And the spread's only 10.
Well, again, I'm not going to argue with you. I think that ACC is pretty bad, so Duke doesn't defend very well, and they have no center, and I go on all night about them like Jim with Syracuse, but I'm not going to bore everybody. So
you're going to go with Mercer?
I'm not going with Mercer. No, I'm going to go with Fran McCaffrey's Iowa Hawkeyes. We haven't been playing good going in, but I kind of like their matchups.
They got to beat Tennessee just to get in.
Tennessee's awful.
Okay. All right, so we got a couple guys picking playing teams. Now, when you're filling out your bracket, these playing games really screw things up because if you want to pick Iowa, they got to win you could have a guy out before the tournament even starts. I know they call it the first round.
Well, you don't hand in your bracket till Wednesday, and then that solves that problem.
Oh, that's true. Actually, most of these teams don't even.
Yeah, nowhere really even the Quicken Loans $1 billion bracket doesn't have to be until Wednesday. So,
boy,
you can cheat.
That really is a great relief.
I like.
Yeah. Not only are they giving away the $1 billion, but the top 20 winners in that get $100,000 each.
I've already said I won't take anything but the billion.
What are the odds for that?
Yeah, it's like
they're only letting 15 million people in, so they figured out the odds, and they don't want like 30 million people getting in because the odds are crazy. But yeah, the more people that enter, the more chances there's of winning it. So there are some odds to it.
Yeah. Did you guys fill out a $1 billion bracket? Are you gonna?
I'm going to. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Warren Buffett. I think he's the best, and he's a big Creighton fan. He's got Creighton winning it all.
I intend to get in, but if I'm out there because I'm the 15th millionth and first person, and you win, I hope you take care of me.
I'll buy you an updated Celtics jacket. That's what I'll do.
Verk, who's your sleeper in the Midwest?
I'm going to go with Mercer as well. I just really looking more towards. I think they could, if they can somehow get by Duke. I think they could beat UMass and advance. We're looking at advancing to the Sweet 16. I think they'd have the easiest, round of 32 game, and possibly advance to the Sweet 16. But I don't think they're going to beat Duke, but I'll go with them, though, as my sleeper.
I got Mercer beating Duke. I got Mercer then moving on against UMass. And
don't forget about Lehigh a couple years ago when they beat Duke.
It's true. It's a different. I had an argument with a friend of mine, and I said, Duke's program is in a slow decline. And every time now Duke wins anything, that friend will say, oh, how so much for the slow decline. But Duke is used to having 4-year players, certain types of players. The players that have been coming to Duke recently are not that type of player. These Rodney Hoods and Jabari Parkers, they just aren't fitting into Krzyzewski's system. And, the loss to Lehigh a few years ago was kind of an indication of that. And I think this year's loss to Mercer will be another indication. Mercer's got a guy, a 6'4" combo guard named
that I just looked up.
named Langston Hall, who was going to light it up. And the other thing, this is a team that came out of Florida Gulf Coast Conference, and you see what they did last year. So
yeah, this is a high-scoring team that comes out of they actually almost beat or should have beat Florida Gulf Coast in that title game. And then, remember what Florida Gulf Coast did. I mean, they were awesome. And
they only had one league loss last year.
Yeah, Mercer's got a great schedule. They've got some good wins. And I was looking at that tonight and before I came down. And they beat Florida Gulf Coast in the finals again this year. So, yeah, they're a good team. And obviously, Duke could go down as that 14-3. There's no.
And I do think for Duke, they are a little slump. They haven't won a regular season title in 3 years or ACC tournament, which, usually they're winning that. It seems like every other year at least. What I found interesting watching that ACC tournament and hearing about it, like UVA hadn't won the tournament since 1976.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
crazy.
unbelievable how dominant North Carolina and Duke. You look at the tournament titles. It's North Carolina or Duke, North Carolina, NC State won a couple, and then the rest of the ACC won like 10. It's just the dominance of Duke that Duke and NC have had in the ACC.
A lot of crazy.
Kind of ridiculous.
And Duke wins today, they're probably a #1 seed, right?
Oh, I would have gone crazy.
Too
many losses.
I don't know if they would have.
Well, they said they were more likely than Virginia.
No, I know. Who knows? I was surprised. Wasn't that surprised to see Virginia there, but Duke a couple years ago had Kyrie Irving, and I think they would have won the whole thing if he didn't get hurt. He came back for the tournament, and I thought they would have won the ACC tournament, and then the whole
Who'd they lose
title.
to?
I mean, they won a couple years. They won it 4 years ago, so I don't know. I'm not sure about the slow decline. I mean,
Right.
they won it with Zubek and Shire and those guys.
Indianapolis.
Yeah, but Duke's going to be back next year. They got the best center coming in and the best point guard coming in as freshmen.
Just like this year with Parker, but Zubek and Shire, those are
4-year players. I love the
and-
4-year
and
players. I miss it, but
Last year's team
It's
had
just
some great
Krzyzewski's
4-year
the
players.
landscape of college basketball has changed. They tried not to do that, but in order to succeed,
You're going to recruit the best players.
yeah, you got to take them. I'd love for them to have 4-year guys, but it's too hard to find those really good players to stay for 4 years.
If they lose Parker and Hood, they'll feel that impact.
Oh yeah,
obviously,
absolutely.
If Hood goes pro.
Hood is going pro. He announced it. I swear to God.
Yeah, if both those guys go. They're
Parker, we don't know, but
Yeah,
Hood,
but I'm
Hood
sure he will.
actually.
Really?
Yeah.
The way Parker played in this tournament, I mean, the step back threes and the fadeaway block, I mean, he did everything. Took it coast to coast. I can't see him staying, although I love it.
He's not.
But they don't. Their chemistry is terrible because Hood and Parker are the same player. Really, they're threes, fours, and they don't have anything inside. And it's a bad chemistry.
Did I get your sleeper pick, Brad, in the Midwest? Or are you actually sleeping right now?
In the Midwest.
Charles Barkley did the other day. So
Still with us, Brad? Wow, we might have lost Brad. Can you believe that? That's never happened before.
You guys don't let me talk. Arizona State, I said.
Arizona State. All right. Oh, that's right.
That's
you were first
right.
off. That was a long time ago. We
those
got talking about
Western
Duke.
teams, though, they always let down the people who pick them. Me, anyway.
The Sun Devils.
Yeah, I used to live right up the road from their campus, so I have some allegiance, I guess. Maybe it's a biased pick, but I like them.
Well, listen, 10:33 Eastern Standard Time here on Selection Sunday. We're just 2 days away from the kickoff of the tournament during the play-in rounds. Probably the worst idea ever for the NCAA tournament, in my estimation. I think it just kind of ruins it. I think even if you get a bid and you're one of those play-in teams, it's disappointing. It feels like you didn't really get in like everybody else.
Yeah, you still get in though. It's better than going home. If some of those teams wouldn't be in,
I suppose, but you're.
I think it sucks for the William Mary. If they were to get in, they had to play in a play-in game.
Right, it's not like you're gonna get a berth
instead of playing Duke or whoever. You know,
I think VCU was pretty excited to get in it, and they went all the way to the
But
Final
you get the
Four.
chance
Yeah,
for a
they're
picture,
playing.
though.
Yeah, call NC State right now. See if they'd rather be home or in the playing game.
the more
I know-
teams, the better. I think.
I know
Oh.
Jay Billis doesn't like us calling it the
playing game.
the next round, the second round.
Oh right, yeah, because it's
But,
stupid. That's the first round. Everybody knows that. You know.
I think it's still the first. They should call it all the first round. The game's Tuesday night. There's a first Wednesday
It's a
night.
first round
It's a first
game.
round game
Right.
as well as Thursday and Friday.
Right.
The first round starts Tuesday and goes to Friday. That's how they should do it. Just so it's not so damn confusing.
What's wrong with playing game?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because they're already in.
Because you got the bid, you should be in. It shouldn't be a play-in.
For the-
game.
I think it
I go
sucks
back
for the
to
16
Yeah, the
Go back
16
to
class.
64,
Who wants
you
to
know.
watch that?
Albany?
So,
Yeah, because
I'll watch Albany.
you make the tournament, you want to go play Arizona or whoever. If
Well,
you're
with so much
scrub.
basketball watching the weekend, who's got time to watch these games on Tuesday night
Probably the same people that look
I'll
up
watch
I'll
Mercer.
watch all of them.
with any interest?
I'll watch every one of those games.
Well, all right, it's time. Pick our Final Four teams. And I'm kind of interested to see what everybody's got here. And I'm going to start it with you, Verk.
I got 2 1 seeds and 2 4 seeds. I got Arizona playing Michigan State with Michigan State winning that game. And on the other side, I got Florida playing Louisville with Florida winning that game and Florida beating Michigan State in the final.
Okay, so we got one Florida national title. How about you, Corzi?
I have one number 1 seed making it to the Final Four, and it's a shocker. It's Wichita State.
Literally
You
a
like that,
shocker.
Dave?
Okay.
Literally a shocker. So the only 1 seed I have is Wichita State, and then I have Kansas coming in versus Wichita State, Wisconsin in the Final Four, playing league rival Michigan State. And I like Michigan State to go and beat them again. And they're going to play Kansas with Embiid back, and Kansas is going to win it all again.
Kansas winning it all is a 2 seed out of the South.
And if Embiid doesn't come back, I'd like to take a mulligan on them and go with Michigan State.
Okay, Zach?
I got the same Final Four as Verk. Zona, Florida, Michigan State, and Louisville. I was tempted to pick Iowa State, but Michigan State was pretty impressive today. And Michigan State, Louisville in the finals with Louisville staying hot. Back
Repeat?
Back to back.
Repeat for
Wow.
Louisville. It could happen. Montez
Hottest
Harrell
team.
is a stud.
Russ Smith.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's been on fire.
Why do you bring Zach on the show?
I think he's
No team from the
brilliant.
Americans is going to win the finals. Or the final
It's an
Four.
ACC team, though, you're talking about Louisville.
It's an American team.
For now. Dandy Dave.
Well, as you may recall, I am not a fan of Richard Pitino,
Right.
although they are playing awesome. And I also decided, for the purposes of this show, why go with any number 1s to make it to the Final Four? I'd go with Wichita State and Florida if I guess my a gun was held to my head. But I'm going to go with Michigan State playing Creighton. The winner will be Michigan State. And in the other side of the bracket, the Syracuse Orangemen to get revenge against the Wolverines of Michigan.
That's
But then-
reasonable.
But then to fall to Izzo's Spartans.
So we got 4 guys saying so far Michigan State in the Final Four, but you're the first one to have them actually win it.
You know, I go back to what Matt said a while ago. You know, there's 12 teams probably at least who could win it. So why go the chalk line?
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Brad.
I have the exact same picks as Zach. As a matter of fact, I have Florida,
Andrew.
Arizona, Michigan State, and Louisville, and I have Louisville winning the championship.
Should pick on Brad.
Smith, Montrezl Harrell will be the MVP of this tournament. That guy's a beast.
There's no.
He can be stopped.
Louisville won't even make the Final Four.
You know, this is recorded, so we can go back.
Yeah.
Everybody's loving Michigan State. Okay. Looking at these brackets here. If you want my Final Four.
Let's hear it.
Syracuse.
Well, I have the most trouble with the West, but out of the East, I'm going with Virginia, the Virginia Cavaliers. Out of the Midwest, as much as I love Louisville, I don't actually love Louisville, but I got a lot of respect for the team they got put together. But Wichita State's going to be on a mission, and they got the talent and they got the experience. I got Michigan State coming out of the Midwest. Out of the South, I got Syracuse. They're going to put it together. C.J. Fair's going to lead them through. Tyler Ennis, Jeremy Grant at full strength. Cooney, hit some threes. Come on, hit some threes, and we got this thing. And then coming back to the West, this is a tough one. But I am going with the Aztecs, the San Diego State. And so my Final Four, San Diego State against Virginia. I got Virginia advancing to win that one. On the other side of the bracket, I got Syracuse against Wichita State, and I got the Orange winning there. A Syracuse-Virginia final. We're finally going to see that rematch.
All orange.
And this time it's all Syracuse.
You know, I got a big problem with this.
What's that?
If Syracuse was in the Big East still, you'd take UVA and you'd have them out in the second or first round. But now since Syracuse is in the ACC, you're a huge Virginia fan.
No, I'm not. Look, I never had a problem with Virginia, the league they play in. And Virginia, for quite frankly, has been irrelevant for the last 20 years. I've seen a lot of Virginia, and I like what I see. I don't really see any real weaknesses. The way they respond in games, I think, is what does it for me.
That's not my point. I think Virginia is very good and is capable of making the Final Four, but I think you like to jump on the ACC bandwagon now that the Cuse is
I'm not on the
ACC
bandwagon. And before we get out of here, here's some things the ACC needs to change. Number one, these afternoon semifinals and final games are just terrible. Get them in prime time. Number two, you don't need two networks to cover your basketball games. Raycom Sports and ESPN. It's the same game. Who wants to watch these idiots for Raycom? The announcers suck for the ACC regular season.
The other thing, let's get rid of those accents.
We're in Northern League now. That's right. Out with the Food Lion, in with Wegmans.
That's a good call.
But what other ACC rants do I have to prove I'm not on the ACC
I think
bandwagon?
you proved it right here with your two Final Four ACC teams making the Final Four.
I'm glad that you had picks that were more outrageous than my own. So
mine are very reasonable.
I'll admit, I'll root for the ACC more this year.
Yeah,
I will.
I will not root
for
for the ACC.
I will
this year. Not yet. I just can't. Not yet. Maybe next year things change a little bit, but you're not going to see me pulling for Duke or Carolina just because we're in the same conference.
I'd have a question for the group, if I may.
Sure,
it's
group question.
Did anybody see a team or two that they thought while they were watching this year, man, these guys are great?
Syracuse. Honestly, early on. Kansas, the first time I saw them, I thought they were really impressive back in November. It almost blows my mind that they got 9 losses.
Arizona at Michigan. I watched that whole game. That was when they were full strength, but Arizona.
And you liked
they played
Arizona?
awesome.
I was impressed with Arizona as well, and watching Florida play. I know they struggle a little bit today, but Florida does. They got seniors, which a lot of teams don't, and they do a lot of good things, and they got some depth. And
yeah, and another team honestly is Virginia. We've seen. And I was not high on Virginia all year long. And nobody did to Syracuse what Virginia did. Granted, Grant was out the whole second half, but he was out the whole second half against Maryland.
Virginia lost to Tennessee by 33 points.
Early on. And
33 points.
That's part of the reason why, if you go back to January 1st, nobody thought Virginia was going to win the ACC. Nobody thought they had a chance. But, since then.
Wisconsin beat Virginia in Virginia.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was a bad early season for the entire ACC, really, except for Syracuse and Pittsburgh.
But back to your question, I Arizona early on, before they had their injury, Nick Johnson was playing unbelievable, and I when I watched them in December, I thought to myself, well, this team's really good. They've got a lot of Aaron Gordon and Nick Johnson. I mean, they were good, and they're doing better without their injury, but not as good.
My rant would be, I hate how it comes down to, they say, okay, NC State's in because they beat Syracuse. Yeah. What if Clemson beat Duke? Were they in too?
You know what I mean? Call. That was a phantom call.
It could have been, and that decide their whole. You play this whole season, it comes down to one, a miss, whatever, you know what I mean? And then they say you're out because you lost.
Well, that's why I don't agree with it, and they do the craziest things. Louisville's the perfect example. They've been playing unbelievable. And they put them behind Duke. Kansas has 9 losses and a 2 seed. You know what I mean? 9 losses is a 2 seed. When's that ever happened?
Usually
before?
9 losses will get you in the 8-9 game.
Right. So
you picked them to win.
Kansas, yeah. No, I think they're good, but it's what has Louisville done wrong to get a 4 seed? I mean, if you're talking about the end of the year, and like Verk's saying, if you had won this game, they might have been in. And NC State beat Syracuse, so that puts them in at the end. Well, look what Louisville did at the end. Look where it got them. They are in the Midwest.
They killed
if you just look at 4, 4 is tough, but they're in the Midwest. They're going to be playing in front of a huge crowd in the Sweet 16. That's
tough.
big.
It's tough when say CJ Fair makes that 3 and they win in overtime. I mean, how much is Syracuse any better? Or, you know what I mean? It's just tough to say.
That's why it's madness.
It is. That's what makes it great.
Even the best teams have been real spotty a number of times when I've watched, and I watched a lot of games.
And the greatest thing, what I love about March is whoever wins it, maybe it's Arizona, but there'll be a Sweet 16 game where they pull one out, down 10 with 5 minutes to go, and they win it, and then they cruise through it. Sure. It seems like every year whoever wins it had a stumble, but that they got lucky and won. And
I think that any team in this tournament, 11 seed or lower, has a legitimate chance to not only go to the Final Four, but to win it all. Because its field is crazy. Because nobody stays for 4 years unless they're at one of these lower level schools where they're not recruiting. So it really evens things up. But Brad, Dave asked for one team that really passed the eye test is a legitimate contender this year. That you watched, and we didn't get your answer.
That's because I didn't really have an answer. I mean, Florida defends like crazy. That's they're a legitimate number 1 seed. They've done everything that they've been asked to do. They're on a great streak. They have upperclassmen. That's a tough matchup for anybody. I think they've got an edge over anybody. Now, a lot of if they get to the Final Four, a lot of it's going to depend on what the matchups are and who they play against. Like I said, I got Louisville winning. I think Louisville is hotter right now just because they're just absolutely destroying teams. And but I don't know. I think Florida passed the eye test to me. Louisville, I think, does over the course of the last month. I think Villanova's played great, guys. I mean, they stumbled against Seton Hall. If it wasn't for that, I mean, they've played as well as anybody consistently all season long. That's a team we haven't really talked much about.
They lost, didn't really hurt them though.
They lost to Seton Hall this week. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, I'll tell you, before I get out of here, I'd be remiss without mentioning what a terrible, terrible program the Rutgers Scarlet Knights are. And to see them play their last game in the AAC or whatever before they're off to the Big Ten and lose 92-31, was that it? That almost makes this whole season worthwhile to me because I really can't stand Rutgers.
And they had Cincinnati on the ropes the game, I don't know, 1 or 2 games before that.
Well, they lost.
They did.
William Mary beat them this year, if that tells you anything.
Well, look, guys, we should be heading home. We got to get some sleep because we're going to be up late on Thursdays and Fridays for the next couple weeks watching basketball all game long. Anybody here take off of work for the tournament?
I did.
Well, the one retired guy, right?
Are we going to Buffalo or not? Are we going to Buffalo?
Dave wants to go to Buffalo.
You go Buffalo.
It might be an idea. It might be a 3-hour drive. Well, look, guys, thanks for coming, staying up late here on the Upstate Orange podcast. I don't think we've ever had this many members of the FL1 Sports team assembled at once. and it's certainly exciting. I think this is shaping up to be one of the best brackets, our best tournaments of the year of in recent memory. And I do feel good about Syracuse. I feel really good about Syracuse. Law of averages. It's a clean slate. This team has won 25 straight to start the season. They're at the same strength as they were during that run, and they're going to put it together. And again, when you're looking at Syracuse and you're trying to figure out how you're going to beat them, good luck. Good luck game planning against them. Syracuse can only beat themselves. They cannot be beaten.
By BC or NC State.
Beat themselves.
Georgia Tech.
NC State beat themselves. So Brad, good night from Cincinnati.
Have a good one, guys. Don't forget to watch your Requiem to the Big East when you get home tonight.
I got it on the DVR. Hopefully, it's going to be about 1 a.m. by the time I finish watching it, but it's going to be with a tear in my eye. So hey, fill out those brackets. Get in the FingerLakes1.com March Madness contest, one of the most unique contests there is. You pick one team from each group. You get 1 point from every point they score, and if you beat the hundreds of other entrants, you win like a $50 gift certificate from Cicino's, or cheese pizzas, or chicken wings. There's a lot of packages up there. Go to FingerLakes1.com. Look for the link on the homepage to enter the March Madness contest. Also, great printable brackets from Finger Lakes One. We keep them clean, so you can write in your own stuff in there, like a name or prize pool or our tiebreaker national championship game. But right there, that is. You can print them off the front page of FingerLakes1.com. And, hey, here we go. Another year. Another heartbreaking, gut-wrenching experience. But I like our chances. Guys, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having us.
That's about it for the special Selection Sunday edition of the Upstate Orange Podcast. For Matt Verkey, Kevin Korzeniewski, Zac Young, Dandy Dave Barnick, the Professor, Brad Connor, our producer Jeremy Hunt, I'm Jim Sinicropi. Let's go Orange!